Streaming. It's just preparing, setting your meeting up for custom streaming service. I'll just hit record right here. Okay, I'll turn that off so I don't have to listen to my, the echo of myself on another window in the chat. Anyway, hi everyone. Welcome to the Norm Select series. My name is Michael Dang, and I am the film liaison at the UBC Film Society for the year 2020 and 2021. And I would like to welcome you to the fourth event of our Norm Select series with our guest, the director, producer, writer, editor, production, and costume designer, et al. Actor, Anna Biller. She directed and wrote such films as The Love Witch in 2016 and Viva in 2007. She is a writer and director who creates unique female-focused and highly visual films. She has a BA from UCLA in art and an MFA from CalArts in art and film. Her first feature, Viva, played in film festivals all over the world and gained cult status. And her second feature, The Love Witch, won acclaim for its elaborate visual style and feminist themes and has screened in numerous film festivals worldwide. Rotten Tomatoes, it's ranked the 40th best horror film of all time, which is wow, like it's really exciting to get to talk to her today. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that even though we are online, that on UBC campus, we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam peoples. And in Vancouver, we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples. We got some great questions from viewers and great participants and stuff, and we will have time to get to all of them. And I will ask everyone that there will be a section, everyone on the Zoom right now, there is a section that we're going to have kind of audience questions. And so if you can mute yourself now and then raise your hand during that section, then I will call on you, and then, we can get that done. So yeah, let's welcome Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
We're so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for taking time out of, to talk to us. We're huge fans here at UBC Film Soc. We watched our last no, not our last film liaison, 2 film liaisons ago, Clara. What we usually do is we usually kind of have in-person screenings, and we showed The Love Witch 2 years ago. So we're really excited to have you on. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come talk to us.
Sure.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I think I want to kind of start in this portion with some kind of more general questions about your practice, and then we can move on to some individual films. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is often noted about your work, and one of the reasons why I really love your work, is that your films are like very highly stylized and highly detailed, and they capture almost to a T the kind of the aesthetics of, cult and art and technicolor cinema, from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They have all these very vibrant, high contrast colors in the sets and the costumes, but with this sort of kind of winking and self-reflexive tone, because these films are, contemporary. But they feel like they were made so long ago. I remember when I watched the trailer for The Love Witch a couple years ago, I was just kind of like, wow, I can't believe that this is a film made today and not, lost from however many years ago. So I want to first ask you, who are your main filmmaking inspirations, aesthetically or conceptually, and what were the films that inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Well, yeah, I watched so much classic Hollywood cinema, mainly the black and white films and the color films, the Technicolor films. And, I really love European cinema as well, Japanese cinema. And those were later loves because I didn't really discover those till I was like a teenager. But I grew up starting from when I was a small child, watching the old movies, the old black and white movies and old, Hitchcock movies and everything, because my mom was obsessed with them and she had them on all the time. And I just became obsessed with like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and, all this stuff. Um, you know, conceptually, um, there's so many movies that are, inspirational to me conceptually. I mean, I like some of the, uh, God, I mean, it's like I have so many influences, Um, what I like to do is kind of make movies that feel like how I feel like a movie was when I was a kid. Like people used to say like, oh, this looks like it could be in a movie. And they don't mean this looks like it could be in like a mumblecore movie, or this looks like it could be in a neorealistic movie. They mean it looks like it could be in like a big Technicolor musical or something. Like life could be like a movie. And that was just my concept. Maybe it's very like childish concept of movies, but it's my concept of like this is what a movie is. And then I also like to be very personal, like put my personal life into movies. So it's kind of like my filmmaking is kind of a cross between like my personal life, but it's a movie, and and some feminist theory influences and some art practice influences in there.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Impressively, one of the things that I find just so impressive about you and so impressive about your filmmaking is that on your two released features, which are Viva and The Love Witch, these are the two released ones so far, and on your shorts, you are credited as director, producer, writer, editor, production designer, costume designer, composer. You write songs for, the musical portions of the films. And in Viva and in your shorts, you also act as well. And I just wanted to ask, what are some of the joys, but also some of the challenges of taking on so many roles when you make a film?
Uh, it's just very time consuming to do all that. So I would love to have more help, more assistance. I really would. But it's very hard to get people to do what you want them to do when you have a very specific vision. So when you're working low budget, basically what people get out of working low budget, like you get no money or very little money, is they get to put in their own creative vision. That's kind of like how low or no budget filmmaking works. If you want someone to do your costumes, you have to give them total creative freedom. They're not going to work for you for almost no money to have you tell them what to do. So when you have a very strong vision, it's very hard on a low budget to get people to help you, because you know what I'm saying? It's like, unless you want to just give it away. So that's been the challenge as working low budget. It's like you need to pay for top designers if you want people to do just what you want. Otherwise, you have to do it yourself. But the biggest challenge really has been acting and directing, I have to say. And so I stopped doing that because it's just ridiculous to like have to worry about how your makeup looks or sit in the makeup chair or like be sweating under the lights, when you're trying to direct, to stay like cool and calm. And I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought you did both very well, both acting and directing very well in your shorts and in your features, but I can definitely see how, if you're worried about, being on camera and also kind of wrangling everybody off camera, how that can be a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it actually hurts the performance. And also I like to look through the camera, through the monitor, when the shot, you know what I mean, when the shot's being filmed. It's horrible to not be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so one of the things that another thing that I really love is, kind of there was aspects of Viva and the Love Witch that, they do look like as I was saying before, they do have this sort of, 60s and 70s aesthetic. Is there any specific equipment or film stock that you use in order to kind of enhance that aesthetic? And yeah, I suppose that's the question.
Well, they don't make too many film stocks anymore. I mean, there's very little to choose from. It's a lot of it's the lighting that you use. You use hard lighting and use a lot of light, and that brings out a lot of color. And when people say my films look like Technicolor, it's because I'm lighting with as much light as they used to use in the Technicolor films. It makes the colors really, really pop. And then I actually, the DP overexposes a little bit to get an even denser negative. And then I usually, and then you're supposed to print it down, but I don't print it down. I actually print the lights up. And I have arguments and fights with color timers and with everybody, but that's actually how you get that look.
Fascinating. Yeah. And in addition, you do use I want to say was it the Love Witch that was in you use like millimeters of film, right? You like to use like 16 millimeters, 35 millimeters too. Is that correct?
No, I just use 35,
Oh
35
yeah, you just use
millimeter.
35. Yeah.
Yeah, for my short films, I use 16 millimeter. Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Hmm.
yeah, 35 millimeters is a lot more expensive.
Oh, okay. Gotcha,
It's
gotcha,
a
gotcha.
much bigger, wider, it's a strip, like this, or 16 is like this. So
Mhm. Oh, okay. Thank you for
yeah,
like, making that
it's
sort
literally
better
how
in my
wide it is.
mind.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's like when you use a still camera and you have like a negative and it's 35 millimeters, it's like that. And then 16 is like half that. So you don't, so when you blow it up big, like in a movie theater, it gets very, very grainy on 16 millimeter usually. But most people don't project film anyway, right? They digitize it and then, so it kind of doesn't matter, but.
no, but thank you for clarifying that up. That's some free film school to anybody who's watching there. The difference between 60 millimeter and 35, go for the 35. It's more expensive and it's fit for the screen.
Yeah, it's a clearer, it's sharper image, with more detail in it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Yeah. So in utilizing these kind of older aesthetics, from the history of film, the film industry is kind of this, and film history is still, to this day predominantly white and predominantly male. And your films often make a very pointed feminist commentary on, gender roles and sexuality and that sort of thing. So in your filmmaking, how do you find that you reconcile between parody and homage?
I really don't think about either of those things when I'm writing a script at all. I just think about trying to get at something that I'm preoccupied with, some kind of idea. So like in The Love Witch, I'm thinking about, like what is it like to be a woman? And how many men have I known who have not understood at all what life is like as a woman? So we had the Me Too movement, and then a lot of people became a lot more aware of what life is like for a woman, like this constant harassment or these horrible things that happen that nobody tells anybody, but it's just kind of like this life of a woman. And I always think that you see so many movies with people hating women, like Elaine in a male oriented movie would just be like some kind of stuck up bitch who just does, it's like always from the male point of view, like you can't date her, or you know what I mean, she's stuck up, or she likes you but she dumps you, or she does this horrible thing and she's a monster. Just this idea, I just think about like, okay, what is it like to be a woman, how to translate that onto the screen, but how to make it kind of interesting and fun. Being a woman is kind of like being a witch. It's like being misunderstood. It's like being other. It's like being like a freak. It's like being a monster. You're not the normal thing, and also being a woman of color, especially, is like that. So try to make that metaphor and then try to make her look like she's weird, like she's other, like she's too glamorous, she's too beautiful, she's too fake. She's like got this facade, there's something wrong with her. And that all goes in the hair and the makeup and the costume. But it's also what it's really coming from is being generated from inside of the story and not from like some surface thing about how the audience is going to take it, whether they're going to laugh at it or whether they're going to revere it. Because I'm not even thinking that way.
Okay. Yeah, that I gotcha. I gotcha there. Yeah. Actually, I think we should move on to the Love Witch of that part at this point of the interview because I have, a lot of kind of questions about it. I love that movie so much. Um, so how did you conceive of the movie? What inspired you to create the character of Elaine? And we kind of talked about this like, a second ago, and the world of the Love Witch. And what kind of drew you to this world of potions and magic and witchcraft?
Well, again, it's kind of like I'm interested in creating a female fantasy. So the idea of creating, potions and magic and witchcraft is a way of taking the witch, which is a negative demonic figure often, and turning her into a figure of female fantasy. Like, what is it like to be a witch and to get to wear these cute clothes and have this glamour makeup and make your potions and manipulate men and all the fun parts of it, in a way. And I took some of the inspiration from, 60s pulp novel covers with witches, and some of it from, the movie Bell Book and Candle, or like, Leave Her to Heaven, 1940s Technicolor noir, which is about she's kind of a witch, this woman, she's very beautiful. Things like that, and then also, I just wanted to put the idea of heartbreak on the screen. I wanted to make the feeling of heartbreak real on the screen. The Three of Swords, which is a heartbreak card. There were just a bunch of things that were interesting me about putting this, and a woman who's got mental illness is very tragic, but to show like, the inner and the outer are in conflict, all the layers that you can have in a beautiful, glamorous woman that nobody sees or cares about or even wants to see. All they see is the surface. To try to go underneath the surface of this woman and see all the things that are going on.
Actually, I had a question about that because the thing about Elaine, which I really loved and I really connected to when I watched the film, is that she is a very complex kind of protagonist. And there are times in the film where, she does, murder these men, and she seduces her friend's husband, Trisha's husband, Richard. But at the same time, I felt like such a deep sympathy and empathy for her at the same time, because she does have this sort of bad luck with men and she is looking for love. And there is an ambiguity when I was watching the film about what her true intentions are. Does she give these men these potions because, she wants to kill them, or does she give these potions because she wants the men to fall, she wants to find love? And so there's an ambiguity of kind of Elaine's true intentions, I personally find, throughout the film. And was it your kind of intention to kind of make this empathetic character who kind of subverts a sort of femme fatale trope?
Yeah, it was. And in fact, what I was trying to do in a way is have both those possibilities exist at the same time. And I think that's kind of how people are, though. When you really look at people, it's like she kind of does love these men or want love from them. On the other hand, she actually kind of hates them and she wants them to die because she's been so abused by men. So she's got this ambivalence in herself and she flips from one to the other. So there's one thing about witchcraft that's kind of complicated, and it's mentioned briefly in the movie, which is that love spells, when you do a spell, it doesn't come out, the words you chant aren't the things that come true. It's what's in your heart that comes true. So maybe like she's chanting that she wants true love, but in her heart, she hates men and she wants them to die. So it's kind of like the spell comes out wrong. But also, I just think like if you look at people who are evil, nobody's truly evil. And I think most people think, even when they're being truly evil, that they actually have reasons for doing what they do. Everybody has a reason. Any villain is empathetic if you can get inside of that person's pain and hopes and fears and desires, So like there's a difference between the way she projects herself into the outside world, which she's pure evil, and the way she thinks of herself, which is she doesn't think she's bad. She thinks she's kind of fantastic. But also she's been driven crazy by abuse and by being objectified. So she's not able to really get beyond that. A lot of people have been abused. They try to be good and they try to be nice and they try to be mentally healthy, but they just keep falling back down into depression and anger. And I think that's who she is.
Yeah, I definitely kind of got this sort of, I had a question about the kind of the witch cult that kind of shows up in the film with Gahan and Barbara. And it really interesting to me because when I watched the film, kind of like you were saying, she says that she loves these men, but inside she kind of hates her. With Gahan, it's very interesting how that confidence, and Samantha Robinson does this beautifully in the performance, where you can tell that there is a sort of, she is like very confident and very kind of steely around other men, but with Gahan there is kind of something that she does kind of hold back. And in the film, witches are kind of known in the general public. They're an underground group, but they are, they're kind of they're like they're oppressed kind of figures. They are, in the bar, they, chant for, the witches to be burned and that sort of thing. So was that ambiguity of that kind of moral ambiguity, or that internal, does that also apply to, the witch cult that you wrote?
In my mind, that wasn't an ambiguity. In my mind, that character is actually an evil character. He's a cult leader, and he's pushing against women's consent to get them. That's, I mean, the polite way to put it, to get them to join the coven. And he's actually quite evil. And his wife is blind to his evil. She's actually good. And that's actually like, that came from my study of witchcraft. Is I noticed that in witchcraft cults, there are often groups with people with widely varying types of experience and knowledge and ethics codes, so that you could get a white witch married to a black witch, and they're practicing, and they have a group, and people get hurt. There's all these kind of levels of things, because it's like any other group in life. Any other group in life where there's a charismatic male leader? It's like that cult, that recent thing. What was it called?
NXIVM.
Yeah,
Was that the one that they just did the HBO show about? Yes, yeah, NXIVM was the
yeah.
cult.
So Gain is basically like that NXIVM guy in my mind. He's an evil warlock.
And that kind of ties into, I'm jumping around all throughout the sort of like a linear agenda, but that kind of ties into what a lot of the themes in Viva are about too, right? Which is a lot about how, these 70s sort of like groups about sexual liberation that in theory sort of kind of empower women are, theoretically just a lot of rapey men, right? Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up in a bohemian kind of family, and I was exposed to a lot of really alternative artistic types when I was growing up. So I have some experience with extremely creepy adults, um, and that other people think is, that other people find Bohemia. People who grew up really square think Bohemia is some kind of paradise. But, when you grow up around all kinds of people, like the freakiest people, then it's very frightening as a child, actually. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I'm sorry
Yeah.
about your previous experience with creepy adults, but yeah,
Yeah.
what I found really interesting is what we kind of talked about a couple minutes ago, which was, you said that in your films there you always want to kind of put your own kind of personal life into the film. So I was wondering what kind of aspects of The Love Witch were really relating to what you were kind of going through at that moment.
Well, the heartbreak aspect was very real to me, but also the feeling all my life of being persecuted for being different. And I'm never sure how much of that is being a woman and how much is being a person of color. And I just never know, you know? And there could be a third element, which is just that objectively I am weird. And I never know if that's actually the problem, that I actually am like objectively kind of strange and peculiar. But it's very hard to detach these things. But I have to say, like in my own life, being objectified as a woman has been the most obvious issue for me. And it started at a young age, and it's been very, very oppressive and very consistent. And so I'm interested in exploring that the most. But also I've known women who have been destroyed, completely destroyed by being objectified by men, women who are very, very beautiful and who started to be objectified at in childhood. And they learned that their only self-worth was in their looks. And it destroyed them, completely destroyed them. They just went completely off the deep end. And I think, even though that didn't happen to me, I'm not even good looking enough for that. But and I feel like some of the
Don't
women,
say that.
no, but I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
just like some of these really, really beautiful women who have just completely gone absolutely nuts, and they just lost themselves and become schizophrenic. And I've seen it happen more than once. And I feel like Elaine, that's what who Elaine is. She's someone who's been driven insane and lost her identity and lost herself in the end, and ends up psychotic. You know?
Yeah, for sure. That's yeah, that was kind of another reason why I kind of, I really sympathized with her, kind of despite this sort of, yeah, this ambiguity like we were talking about. Um,
Yeah, and I guess the thing me saying I'm not good looking enough, it's also because I was never treated as, when I was growing up, I was always treated as like the brainy one. Like my sister
mhm.
was the pretty one and I was the smart one. And I was never treated like not really ever treated like that. And I think like it just kind of it really messed with her, you know. But because I was always kind of like, everyone said I was like my dad and I was like so smart, it kind of encouraged me to pursue my things where I could use my brain much more than her, you know. Although I'm not saying she isn't smart. Actually, she's really smart. But it was just kind of like the objectification is what I'm saying. Just like the level of it over time is again is so damaging to women.
Yeah. Um, Actually, I had a question about something similar to that, regarding three examples of myself as a queen. Um, do you feel like, one of the reasons why it was kind of important for you to kind of cast yourself as a queen in these kind of three different segments is because as a woman of Asian descent, you felt like, the film industry wasn't putting up the roles for you or putting up, the for you as a director and a writer wasn't, really being there for you in that sort of way. Would you say that that is would you say that that's kind of where it came from?
Well, kind of, except that I never really tried to be part of the film industry. But I was trying to make something like it was kind of performance art, kind of experimental. But I did want to see someone who looked like me on the screen. That was important. And I have to say, I did try to go into acting briefly. In my freshman year of college, I actually went to school for drama, and I dropped out in the first quarter because I had a calico audition, and it was only called. All my friends were called back for multiple roles, and I was only called back for ethnic roles. And like they weren't even my ethnicity, like Pocahontas, like what I'm
Oh
saying?
shit. Oh no. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
Like
hate shit like that. Yeah.
like Latina and Pocahontas, whatever, like stuff that was just like generically ethnic. And at that point, I realized, okay, forget it. I don't want to act. You know?
Yeah, but one of the things that I do love about your films is that, there is like in A Visit from the Incubus, there is, in a kind of an old-timey Western film, there is kind of a female protagonist and one of Asian female protagonist. And one of the things that um shoot, I didn't know where I was going with that. But yeah, that is one thing that I do really, enjoy and love about your films. And the Incubus story is kind of, and how you kind of play off of it, where you sort of get the best of the Incubus in the end, but it was through like these great musical tunes. And we have questions about, your songwriting later, because I'm really excited about that. That kind of relates to, I think, because the Incubus is this kind of folkloric myth that is sort of like, it is sort of like Bluebeard in that way, where it's this folkloric
Right.
myth of this sort of man who, it's like the result of the myth is like the trauma and death and murder of these women in that sort of way. And I love how you sort of kind of how you not sort of, but how you play with those kind of old folkloric tropes. I really enjoy that. Going back to the Love Witch for a second. Oh, but you can respond if you'd like. Or
Oh, I just wanted to say that in the Incubus, I was kind of in drag as a white woman because I named myself Lucy McGee, and then nobody ever mentions my ethnicity. So I just thought I'm going to give myself this really white, super white name. It'd be something Mick, Mick Gee, Lucy McGee, and I thought that was really funny.
that is really funny. And you know what? It's like we cast white women in Asian roles all the time. So that's the
Yeah,
least he can do is
Yeah, in Viva, I was Barbie Smith.
exactly.
You know, I like to give myself these names and see, but nobody comments on that, you know. And that when you're asking about camp, like that's the level of camp I go into. It's not so much about the sets; it's about the writing. You know, when I do camp, it's usually in the writing.
For sure. I actually had a question about the word camp, and that's so funny that you bring it up. And you kind of talked about how it's, can you elaborate on kind of what you find is kind of camp in the script? Do you like the word camp? Is that a word that you like?
I do like it. But the thing is I don't. I'm actually usually trying to write something that's kind of comedy, right? It's like not really. The camp comes from just the excess that ends up happening. But what's really funny about my process, my practice, is that when I'm writing and directing a movie and designing it and everything, even though I'm having fun, I'm dead serious about my themes. Like I'm trying to say something that's very important to me. I've got these underlying themes about rape and abuse and about social structures and the place of women in society and being a person of color. And I'm very, very serious. And then everybody's like laughing their heads off when they're watching the movie and they're calling it a comedy. And I'm not sure if it's a comedy, but if I leave it alone, if I don't watch a film of mine for a while, like at least a year maybe, and then I watch it again, I don't see the seriousness anymore. And I'm laughing my head off too. And I see all the camp and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So it's interesting with some distance, I start to realize that what I'm really trying to do, I think, is take all this personal pain and channel it through, I think, just entertainment in a way. It's just to make it entertaining. I think that's really, in the end, is really my goal, is to make it entertaining. And I think maybe my formula for that is original. Like how to make something entertaining is to make it based on things that are real, that people care about, that are painful, and then to do this sort of like fun campy thing with it so that it's not heavy and it's not depressing and it's not boring. And then I think those feelings resonate with people, but they're laughing. And I think that's in a way that's very, for me, that's very therapeutic, to just laugh, like to transform something into something you can really laugh at, like your pain. And really, isn't that what comedy is? I think that's what comedy is, right? It's like
I
laughing
would
at
say
our
so.
pain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would for sure say so. And talking about this sort of kind of comedy, like this kind of comedy in a traumatic moment, one of my favorite scenes in Viva is the orgy scene, which of course ends in this, very harrowing kind of sexual assault involving drugs by yeah, of kind of your character Barbie. And but that is a scene that in the kind of the lead up to it, I find it very fun. And I wanted to first ask about that headdress that you were wearing, because that is just fantastic. I just love that whole look.
Well, the
And
headdress specifically, I copied from another movie. It was the headdress that Anna May Wong wore in Daughter of the Dragon. I think that's a movie, it's a pre-code film. And so that's another Asian actress, and it's an iconic headdress. Yeah.
wow, actually, it's so interesting that you bring that up, because one of the questions that I had about The Love Witch, and you can please correct me if I'm kind of, if this is a sort of lazy comparison or kind of going off base with this, but one in the last scene of The Love Witch, and to anybody's watching, this is going to be a major spoiler alert. And this is also a major spoiler alert for another film that that I'm talking about. It was the last scene where Elaine stabs Griff in the bed with the knife. That reminded me a lot of Chantal Ackerman and Jean Dielman.
Yeah, that was
And
actually, when you're talking about homage, that was a direct homage.
really, okay, I'm so
Yeah,
excited
that's
I caught
great.
that.
Yeah. Not too many people catch that. It's the
Oh,
same shot. It's exactly the same
yeah.
shot. Yeah.
Well, that's what it kind of reminded me of, and that's
Yeah.
another film where kind of you kind of see a woman kind of going through life and kind of and living her life, and she is she is a sex worker throughout the film, and it's kind of, but it kind of shows how kind of the pressures too, like your film too, and that's one of the reasons why both feminist films, and I thought that maybe that
Yeah.
could have been a
I
homage
wanted
there.
to, yeah, I wanted to end it like that. to make a clear homage to a very famous feminist film, and to show the parallels between it. Because most of my other references are not to other feminist films, although there are a couple others here and there. But that was the most direct reference to a
Okay.
movie in the Love Witch.
Amazing. So yeah, with the we talk about the headdress being an anime Wong kind of piece, and we talk about, the ending of The Love Witch being a direct homage to Chantal Ackerman. Do you feel that even when you're kind of referencing or making fun kind of in like an older, predominantly male film history, that you're also kind of creating a lineage of female filmmakers as well, and kind of creating that sort of alternate history as well?
But not female filmmakers so much. In that example, definitely, because there aren't as many films by female filmmakers to reference. But definitely the Hollywood women's picture. Definitely a lineage of glamour actresses, for sure. So not only Anna May Wong, but other actresses and other stories from women's pictures from Hollywood. A lot of references to other women's pictures. So like, some of the shots in The Love Witch are like shots of Deep Hedren driving in The Birds, or Janet Leigh driving in Psycho. It's sort of like these actresses and the way they're shot and made up and lit, and the kinds of situations and things. But it's definitely what I really love to do, and I did this in the Incubus, and this is the thing I love to do the most, is take a script and do it sort of straight, in a straight genre, but just change the point of view just enough that it's not like any movie that's ever been made. It's just tweak it just enough. And you don't have to tweak it that much, but if you do it in a couple of really significant ways, it completely changes it. So you, like most movies from a male point of view. Like a really great example is like Ida Lupino. She's a big influence. Her movie, she does that with her movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she takes kind of a female point of view in a usually kind of male perspective.
Well, it's
Uh,
not a male perspective. It's more like it's a genre movie. It's a like popular genre, like a noir, or let's say like so it's like and another female filmmaker that does that is Agnes Varda. So like a really good example is Le Bonheur. Le Bonheur, it's this take on adultery that is so painful. Is the most painful that, and you look at it's the same, it's the same thing as Ida Lupino. She makes things like adultery more painful than a man ever would. The idea of like a man enjoying himself and a man discovering himself through a new woman. And then these women, they take the effect that it has on the women. So it's a very similar situation, but it's like a woman's like death knell in her heart. So, it's interesting. So there are many male filmmakers that make films about adultery where the act of discovering a new woman is just like this absolute pure bliss, and like escaping the old shrew of the wife or whatever it is. And these films by women like paint it differently. It's so interesting. So that's kind of like what I do.
Actually, it's so funny that you bring up La Bonheur, because that's another movie that I found kind of has a very striking similarity, at least structurally, to Viva, in the way that that is a film where, kind of for people who don't know, and this is, spoiler alert, is that it's a film where a man cheats on his wife, and he tries to, do this thing where he's like, maybe we can be kind of polyamorous, that sort of thing. His wife kills himself, and in the end, his mistress kind of takes over the kind of place of the wife,
Yeah.
and to a T. And there's this kind of the last montage of that film I almost find horrifying, in the way that, this new woman just completely just is in the same spot the wife used to be. And Viva,
It's a radical movie, very radical, because
for sure.
it shows the husband being sweet and kind and handsome and loving. And that's really, really important because it isn't showing a villain, an asshole, a disgusting guy, and then all the other guys can feel like I'm not him. It's just like it's like taking like a male instinct, which is built into most men, and showing how that destroys the universe of women.
Yeah, for sure. And how kind of the structural things there kind of allow something like that to happen, right? And but how it reminded me of Viva was in sort of the way that, Barbie and Sheila, they sort of go back to their like versions of their previous lives before, before they kind of get into the sort of the sexual revolution kind of culture. But then I was sort of like, well, I don't know. I didn't really feel too good about, their sort of they're going back to, because I feel like both sides were kind of equally oppressive in that sort of way.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like they try to escape this oppressive atmosphere and they go into another equally oppressive atmosphere, and those are the only two places they can be. And then they try to do this third world, which is trying to perform in the theater, but there's no audience. It's only in their fantasy life. But also Viva has to in order to even do that, she has to work with her rapist.
Yeah, for sure. And that scene was very harrowing to me.
Yeah. So the idea is like she gets a phone. So it's like you get a phone call from someone and you need to get out of the house. And it's like, I'm going to go. But this is the guy you hate more than anything who's ruined your life. So it's sort of like that, trying to show what the world is like for women. Like you do have to work with your rapist. You do have to. He is your boss, you know what I mean? He's not, right? He's not somebody in a back alley. He's your boss, right? He's your dad or something. It's something really horrible,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understood that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I cried when I cut that together, that scene, where she had to answer the phone and then go to see him. I actually like literally sobbed for like 10 minutes because it was so awful, So it's basically a comedy, but then it's not a comedy at that point,
It was something like that ending part, usually a kind of a grand musical number, feels like, triumphant for the characters. But this time I was like, no, in that sort of way. That last musical number was that kind of reminded me a lot of, and this kind of connects to Agnes Varda, Jacques Demy and the Young Girls of Rochefort. Was that another kind of reference that
that was a direct reference, but it was also a reference to Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But I think Les Dames of the Rochefort was an homage to Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But what I did
was really? Didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like, well, they both, there's two women, blonde and a brunette, in red sequin dresses. What I did was the dresses that I made were a cross between the dresses in the one movie and the dresses in the other movie. So they're tied on the skirt with a slit at the leg, like in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but they're a halter style, whereas the Gentlemen Prefer Blondes has long sleeves. So I made them a halter style, like the Young Girls of Rochefort, but a slit at the leg. So it's like I combined the two. And then I remember when I was making those dresses, we were so crunched for time. It was like 2 days before, and I didn't have the dresses yet, and I was panicking because I didn't have a pattern. And I called my mom, who's a fashion designer, and I was like, what do? I want to make these tight skirts like Gemma Prefer Blondes. I don't have a pattern. She goes like, oh, that's easy. Just take the straight fabric and wrap it around and make darts and cut the, she just told me exactly what to do. And it was amazing. She was just like, and it worked out perfectly. I had a pattern for the halter part, but not for the skirt part, because I was, anyway.
No. Never feel bad for going on tangents. That is what the Norm Selects is about. Is we want filmmakers and all of our guests to go on like the longest journeys that we can possibly do. So never feel bad about going on a sort of going on long tangents. And actually, that's so funny that you say that, because Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, it's been like a while since I saw it, but isn't the last shot like Marilyn and the other actress whose name is escaped? Yeah, and Russell. They're like, isn't the last shot like them walking down the aisle? That was another ending I didn't feel great about either.
Oh, well, they had what they wanted.
Yeah, I guess they got what they wanted.
Got
Yeah,
what
I
they
guess.
wanted. Jane Russell wanted love, and Marilyn Monroe wanted diamonds, and they both got what they wanted. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I guess if you got it that way, then that's,
Yeah.
that's a good way to think about it. So, we've talked about kind of, the way that really bright, vibrant color plays, such a huge role in your filmmaking. I think of an Anna Biller film and I think of, you know, one of the things I complimented Anna before this event started on her office, because when I think about her movies, I think about like very bright red sets and costumes that sort of like costumes that complement the dressings around them. And you once said that color symbolism plays this sort of plays a huge role in your filmmaking. So I was wondering what specific colors or color schemes have metaphorical or allegorical meanings to you, and how do you correspond a color scheme to a certain scene, a certain set, or a certain character?
Well, you have a lot of different scenes in a movie, and you have to decide what to put people in. So I'll just talk about the beginning of The Love Witch.
Okay.
Elaine is driving to her new destination. I want her to seem like a very, very dangerous woman, like very, very sexual and very dangerous. So I put her in red, give her a red car, and I want to show that she's a control freak. So I have all her accessories match and her luggage and everything. And I also wanted it to really signal like those Technicolor movies where everything matches, because I'm obsessed with that. Um, and then, they go to the tea room, and the tea room is all pink because I want it to be extremely feminine. I want everyone to know this is a very, very feminine world. So it's all pink and white. And so Elaine has to change into pink in order to fit into that environment. And, Trish is already in peach and pink. Uh, so it's kind of like that was obvious, when she's meeting some guy in the park to go seduce him. And she's dangerous. She's in black. Obviously, she's like a black widow. A lot of it's pretty obvious to me, just like, when she's seducing men, she's usually black, or she might be, or when she's in the nightclub, when she's supposed to be like a freaky witch, she's in an occult color, which is purple, which doesn't match anybody else. Um, you know, and then what I did actually in The Love Witch and in Viva was um, the characters ended up at some point in white when they're going through their kind of spiritual transformation. So like
Was that in the Renaissance Fair
well no
scene? Oh,
yeah it was, but I'm thinking about the second tea room scene with Elaine and Trish, where I have Trish in black because she's in mourning and Elaine is in white. Now the first time they were together, they're both in pink, and they were the same. They were like becoming friends. Now they're in opposite colors and they're enemies. And they don't know Trish doesn't know Elaine is her enemy, but she's in white because she's talking about how she's going to become a bride. She's going to become a bride. So she's symbolically, she's a bride and Trish is a widow. And she's not, marrying, she's killed, that guy's dead. But the idea is like Trish's tragedy, her being a widow, is Lane is directly responsible for that, and yet she's going to get to be a bride now. And that was a very obvious choice. Like in Viva, I did the same thing in the end, where she's come out of the orgy. It's like she's all in white. She goes over and talks to Sheila, because it's like she wants to purify herself now. She's gone to this orgy and she's been a bad girl. She was wearing a gold headdress and she was, being sexually very promiscuous and out of control. And then, so now she's in white. Now I'm going to be a virgin again. I'm going back to my husband, completely wipe the slate clean. But see, both of those white dresses symbolize this terrible tragedy in a way. So it's interesting how white can do that.
sure. Yeah. Actually, it's really interesting that you brought up kind of the second tea room scene in The Love Witch, because that's a scene where Trish uses her cell phone, and The Love Witch is kind of is different from your other movies, and like Viva is set in the 70s. A Visit from the Incubus is in the Old West. There is kind of an implication with most of your other films, that they are set in kind of a time past. And even though the Love Witch kind of shares a lot of visual similarities with a lot of those films, when you were writing the script for the Love Witch, why did you decide to make this story kind of set in kind of a contemporary world where, Elaine drives, a contemporary BMW and that sort of thing, and there's cell phones?
Well, because I didn't want that. I didn't want the extra layer of distance. I didn't want it to be about, this is about women in the 60s. I wanted it to be like, it's about now. It's about people now. So a lot of the visual references are older, but I tried to kind of explain that by Elaine is a retro girl who's very into retro. And then her witch cult is kind of retro, and then make other people kind of square, like the cop, he wears suits, and then, like sort of thing, try to make it make sense to the characters.
Yeah.
But, all the technology is modern. There's computers in the police station, and I just thought about it. I thought, again, I'm trying to be realistic for stories. So I'm thinking, look, if we're living in the modern day and someone wants to tell someone they forgot their ring, if we are living in the modern day, they're not just going to go to their house. Nobody does that. You text or call somebody, right? Like it was just, I thought, if I don't ever use a cell phone, then it doesn't take place in modern day. Because there's no way you just drive to somebody's house without calling them if you're living in the modern day, right?
So we're at 6:50 right now. I know that we should probably get to some audience questions that we have submitted in. And I know Jamae is on the other line. Jamae, are you ready to go for the audience question?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, do you want to would you be comfortable turning on video, or do you just want to be audio? You can be either
Oh,
or.
no, I can turn on video. I just wasn't sure what the protocol was and such. So
Oh yeah, no
I,
worries. Anna, Jamae's a huge fan of yours, and
Hi,
you can
Jay. Nice to
hi,
meet you.
yeah. I mean, The Love Witch was like the first truly feminist film I ever saw, and it just totally changed the way that I looked at film history and the way I watched movies. So, yeah, it's like amazing to have you here with us. Um, I wanted to ask about a little bit about your new Bluebeard film, your upcoming film, I guess. And I was just wondering if the sort of critical success that The Love Witch got affected the way you looked at making that movie in terms of production and everything you were working on with it.
Yeah, it did, because I started getting a lot of meetings with people that seemed really interested in working with me on something new, a lot of different film companies. So because of that, I wrote something quite ambitious, which is with a much larger budget. And then it turned out that it was actually not that easy to get financing for something with a larger budget. So I'm still working on it. I'm still working on getting it financed. So it was probably more ambitious than I should have written for the next project. So I'm writing other stuff now that's lower budget to see if like maybe it's easier. It seems like it's a lot easier to get less money than it is to get a lot more money. But I'm still going to make Bluebeard. It's just the COVID thing has made it really, really hard, because the money for independent film is, I don't know, it's not what it used to be. So that that happened.
Yeah, we're so excited to, see Bluebeard
I'm
someday
so
in the
ready.
future.
I'm so ready to make it. I'm so prepared. I've done so much work on it.
Is
and
there
and May, I wanted to say, like, you're the reason that I make films. I'm making films for young women to have something that they can watch that speaks to them. That's the main reason I do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much, because it truly did like just change the way that I thought about media and everything else. I think your films are amazing and I absolutely love them. So I'm always excited to hear and see whatever comes out next, because I just think it's like fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jamae. Oh my God, I just love the love that, kind of, and it's not through potions, I don't think. But, you know, the love that comes out in these kind of norm select meetings. Thank you so much, Jamae, for asking that question. And, you know, I'm so glad that you guys, you know, got to talk and that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's yeah, so now that you said that, you know, you make films for kind of, you know, young women to, you know, kind of look up to kind of see themselves in film, what advice would you give to a young female filmmaker who is perhaps, you know, a woman of color? What would you tell her? And what advice would you give to her?
Well, you know, we have so many movies. The history of movies is so flooded with movies from a male point of view, and movies about male desire and male pleasure and male goals, that if you're a woman, you have a very special, unique privilege right now at being able to write and create something from a unique point of view that hasn't really been done as much in the history of movies. So if you're true to yourself and to your own experience as a woman and to your uniqueness, as long as you do that, you can probably go pretty far. I mean, if you're really true to yourself, you know, just to stay true to yourself. Don't try to copy what other people have done or what you think is going to be liked, or just try to say something that you really want to say, that you really need to say.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I like that a lot. And being that the industry is unfairly still predominantly male, you know, from directors, critics, interviewers, what would you say is like what would you say has been the greatest misconception or read of your work, you know, by kind of a male industry?
Well, I think that the biggest misconception is that it's made from a male point of view, which is very weird, because I think it's like, you know, men have a male point of view and they watch things from a male point of view. And I think they assume that I'm making my work somehow from a male point of view. And I think that's where the misconception comes in. Like they don't, so it's almost like they think I'm objectifying myself and my own actresses, or they think this is why the parody comes in so much, I think, because it's like, why would you objectify yourself and other women? Like, why would you do that in a film if you're a woman? Is it because you're making fun of those films? Well, you know, if you kind of try to grasp the idea that women have their own consciousness, then it becomes easy to understand the films. But I think that that's where the misconception comes in, is because men are never asked to look at anything from a female point of view. They don't have experience doing it. Women have a lot of experience just kind of cross-dressing in their mind and having a male point of view when they watch stuff. But men don't. I mean, they used to, like in the classic movie period, where there's half of the movies were women's pictures, men were able to do that. So men who watch a lot of classic movies can do that. They know how to do it. But men who don't, I don't. But you know, the worst thing, in my experience, about trying to be a female director is when you try to go a little bit more commercial, like I've been doing. And I think that my scripts are not really very well understood by people who read them. They don't understand where I'm coming from or what I'm doing. They don't like. I think with the films, they're better understood than the scripts. The scripts, I think, are just completely incomprehensible to people sometimes, the men that are reading them, because it's like the level of the point of view shift and the irony and stuff is just it's not something you ever read. And when you're on the script level, you know, people are more conservative in a strange way. Like they want something to read like everything else they see that's gotten made, not like something that's different from what they read. So I think having a female point of view has actually made it very, very hard to get scripts produced on a studio kind of level.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can see that a lot. Let's talk about blue eyeshadow for a second, because when I think of both Elaine and I think of Barbie, they're the two protagonists of your two feature films. They both share they're like I know Elaine for sure kind of like switches in and out, but when I think of her kind of on the poster, I think of, the blue eyeshadow. And I believe that Barbie does it when she's like starting to, become more sexually independent. She wears this sort of blue eyeshadow. And I just wanted to kind of quickly talk about that. Talk about that choice of makeup, and do you think it speaks to the way that you wish to subvert audience expectations with your kind of female protagonists?
I don't really know. It's for me, it's a visual thing. It's not.
Okay. Yeah.
It's more of a visual thing. It's it's very period to me. It speaks very specifically to a certain period, which is why I used it in Viva. And in The Love Witch, I also wanted her eye makeup to be retro, but she also wears green and purple, depending on her outfit.
Yeah. Let's talk about the music in your films, because one of the things that I love about your films is even in a short film like A Visit from the Incubus, there's two kind of musical numbers at the end. And, I love how much you love music in your films. And you are a musician yourself. You're a musician yourself, and you sing and play on a lot of tracks on the films that you do. And I think you're a very good singer, by the way. I really enjoy your singer.
Thank you.
I've had Love is a Magical Thing like stuck in my head all week in preparation for this. And so, is writing a musical number for you a very loose process? Do you sometimes, like, when you're even just in production for a film, you're like, oh, a musical number could go good here, and write a song quickly for it? Is it like a loose process, or is it something, do you usually write it during your script writing process?
Yeah, I write it during the script, and then you have to record it before you get on set. But
Hmm.
it's actually the easiest thing for me to do is to write a musical number. It's easier than anything else for me. It comes very naturally. I should probably write more songs because I love doing it, but I do it for practical reasons because I think, okay, we need a musical number here, and I'm gonna like make one for right here. But I write them really fast. I mean, the melodies and the lyrics I come up with really fast. Arranging them is harder because I don't have a lot of technical training, but yeah, I love writing songs, and I think it's because I've watched so many musicals. It's very natural to me to write songs.
And do you write songs like even when you're not in production for a film, or
Not
just like
that
on
much.
your spare time?
Yeah, not that much. I want to do it more because I do it sometimes, but usually it's more of a practical thing. It's kind of like how I don't paint, except for when I'm painting for a film or storyboarding. I don't just do, it's all in the service of movies. And so since I started making movies, everything I do is in the service of movies.
And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about your movies, is that they're like these full works of art. Like, the musical numbers are in there, and the paintings really, kind of accentuate the movie's experience when you kind of notice them in the background. Yeah, so I guess we should be wrapping up because we're a bit over an hour. We have one more audience question from Amelia. And she asks, and this is just to this is my preface, for maybe people who are, kind of not in the know about this sort of thing. Um, but Anna has said that she considers herself a feminist filmmaker who wants to make films that explore the female gaze in contrast to the male gaze that has persisted for so long. And I definitely know that, students at UBC who, take humanities classes might have encountered Laura Mulvey's conception of the male gaze and how the feminine subject is often objectified by the masculine point of view, which is the male viewer. And Amelia asks, in terms of working to emphasize the female gaze rather than the male gaze, what is your process? And is there a conscious, intentional thought process behind emphasizing this gaze when you make your films?
Yeah, well, the thought process is usually just really being very, very honest with myself about my own fantasy life and my own experience. And whether it's politically correct or not, you know, and it's a very conscious process to try to create characters and themes and situations which derive directly not from my universal experiences as a human being, but specifically from the experiences I have from being female. So including things about dating and rape and unequal treatment It's sort of like, I guess, like the surreal feeling. Like, I feel like being a female is sort of like being on drugs all the time. It's sort of like you're floating around in this, like, as if people are treating you as if you're not fully human. And it's a very weird way to walk around the world. And it is kind of like kind of surrealism. And I think that I want to put that feeling in my movies. That's why I think the uncomfortable humor and the strangeness is kind of like I'm trying to like recreate that feeling of being a full human being, but not being hardly ever being treated like one for most of your life, and how bizarre that is. Like it's like an inside joke that only women understand. It's like and then there's so little culture being created from that or through that. Like there are female comedians who are really good at expressing the experience, or artists. Not that many movies, dramas, like that. Movies are a place where it's really, and again, it's because of who is financing the movies and who has all the money and who makes all the decisions. Barely women, you know.
Yeah, I feel like that was a really good kind of last sentiment to end on. I guess if I had to ask any more questions, what do you think personally are the bigger kind of institutional shifts and changes that need to happen to the industry in order to get more films with a female point of view and with a female gaze?
There need to be more female film executives at studios, but there also need to be more female financiers. You know,
Yeah.
we have like Megan Ellison at Annapurna, who's a billionaire, and she was doing really well at supporting female. It's like there's like a financier just here and there, here and there, and here and there. And it's the men all have most of the money and most of the power still. You know.
We should end on a light note though, because I really want to talk about the pink beehive in the second segment of Three Examples of Myself as a Queen. How did you conceive of that second segment with the queen bee yourself and her hive, and how was that set created?
Well, she's a queen bee, so she's fertile, so she's having babies, and so she's just laying eggs all day. And I just felt like that is the ultimate kind of weirdness about being a woman, just sort of like being this reproductive creature who, who's like reduced to her. So like being a queen bee is like being reduced to reproductive function. But I also just referencing again, gentlemen prefer blondes, with her in the pink, the whole pink atmosphere. And then also like I wanted it to look like the inside of a womb. So it's all ribbed and pink like a womb, right? And so I created that out of paper mache. So I made these paper mache molds, and I had a very small office at school, so I could only make like a few at a time. It took me quite a while. I said wait for them to dry and take them off. And then they were lit from behind. They were hung up on, wired together and hung, and then lit from behind with pink light.
Oh, okay, amazing.
So
I
it's
know it must.
kind of like a paper sculpture, really, you know?
Yeah, oh, I like that a lot. Um, I actually had a question about whether I know this must vary from like, each scene to each scene in your films, but do you, like, let's say for Elaine's apartment in The Love Witch, is that a studio set or is that a pre-existing kind of entity that you just kind of come in and redress, or something like the tea room?
Well, the Elaine's apartment was a set, you know.
Mhm.
We put all the walls. I mean, you can't really have that much control over color unless you build a set, you know. The tea room was an existing place that we completely dressed. It was the lobby of the Herald Examiner building in downtown Los Angeles. So what I really wanted from that place was all the cupids and the marble and all that kind of detail on the windows, and everything else we brought in, the pink carpets and the pink tablecloths and the kind of fancy sideboard and all the all the, it wasn't really that much to bring in, really. I mean, it was just kind of, pink and red curtains, just bring all the pink dressing, basically.
So yeah, as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to say, Anna, to kind of, wish everyone a fair and safe existence
I
who
do
have
wish
watched this.
everyone that. And I really appreciate the women who came on and asked their questions and made their comments. And I take this extremely seriously. I think this is very, very important for women to have filmmakers that are currently working that they can be inspired by. And I hope I can continue to do that. And I hope these women can make their own films if they want to. And um, let's all make more movies with female gaze. I hope that a
Yes.
lot more women will be doing that.
Yes. Amazing. Yes. Female gaze 2021 and beyond. That's our New Year's resolution. So yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Anna, for, I sent out this email to you like a couple months ago, and then I was just like, I really, really love this person's work. I wonder if, she's going to respond to the did. So
Thank
thank you so
you. I
much for
really
taking
enjoyed speaking
time.
to you. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you so much for coming on and spending your time to talk with us. Thank you so much, Anna, for talking to us tonight. It was such a big pleasure. And thank you to everyone who is watching right now and has participated in our event. Please follow us on at UBC Film Society on Instagram and Facebook. The Norm Select series and the UBC Film Soc will be hosting a really cool set of events in this kind of upcoming year. We actually have another one next week. We're going to announce who the guest is in the middle of next week. It'll be another female director. So it's very exciting about that. And yeah, so please stay tuned and, keep Saturday the 28th open at the same time because we will be back next week. And so, yeah, I will see you then. Thank you so much, Anna, again.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes. And see you, everyone. Be safe. Wear a mask in public. We don't want COVID anywhere. And yes, so thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.